One's ready. Go!
Yeah, I wasn't born to be average, I was born to be extraordinary. So I gotta pull the trigger, doing everything that's necessary. Sometimes it gets scary, and sometimes it gets lonely, but I still gotta push through. I got a craft and I will hone it, and all the damn wanna own me, but I'm not their blade. I'm an independent powerhouse, and I will stare them in the face. As I take what is mine, they start to think I'm insane. They look at me like I'm crazy, but they don't care anyway. I'm just really doing what I got to do, and I got no plan to quit. So I just gotta keep rocking, and you know that's what it is. Every shot that I do not take, I am guaranteed to miss. So I better grab that rifle and start lining up the hits.
What's up, everybody? We're going to hop right into this one. It is a fantastic episode with Kristin KP Parks, one of the best combat mission support. It's called SWMS now, Special Warfare Mission Support personnel I've ever met in my entire life. She's just one of those people that just fixes problems. We talk about multi-capable airmen and all these other things. KP started off her life just in regular old aircrew flight equipment. She was working on other planes and packing chutes, and that just wasn't enough for her. Her story is ridiculous. From becoming, we're going to say it, she was the first female one papa jumpmaster in the Air Force. She has a crazy career at a bunch of tier 1 units. She's just absolutely fantastic. She's still doing good work 27 years in. Trent, that podcast was great. I don't know.
I mean, she's like a bunch of the dudes that we talked to. She's like, well, you know, we made a lot of these things happen and we kind of worked on this. It's like, no, KP, you were the driving force behind a ton of this change because of who you are and you know, just being unwilling to not make things better, you know?
Yep. Yeah. So fantastic. Great episode with KP. If you guys are looking for the absolute best stuff, go over to our One's Ready page and go down to Attack Lead. If you're looking for anything to train yourself, maybe you're getting ready to go to an operator training summit and you need the gear that you're going to train with from the people that have actually graduated on it and weren't just like, you know, students their entire career, from people that were actually instructors. And
I actually never went through a pipeline. Just throwing it in there. I feel like I need to say that a lot now.
Yeah, well, we decided to delete you from all upcoming OTSs to protect the brand.
I only have deployments, not a pipeline or a selection.
Go over to Attack Lead. You can check them out from our partners page. They're right here. You can bring up literally everything from entire packs, PJ, spec war gear, everything you got. Look, Jared Petrus sent you 10% off. You can get all this stuff over at attacklead.com. They've been at day one. We've been with them forever. You can basically just go over there and check them out. You got fins, goggles, everything you need from training down to bags. And it's not just half spec war, rescue swimmer, ranger, rucks, all kinds of stuff. They're fantastic. We love Attack Lead. Go over there. You'll get the discount if you go directly from the page. So there you go. And we're going to, without further ado, we're going to go on and we're going to check out this fantastic episode with aerial flight equipment superstar KP Parks. It's a great one. Have fun.
It is.
I love it when we get on a podcast and all three people on throw a quick lip pillow in before we hit start. Well, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. It's me, it's Trent. It's our good friend KP. Now, I don't even know how to make an intro for the single support person that I have the most love in my heart for from literally my entire career. KP, Kristin Parks. She's AFE by trade. That's nowhere near the entire story behind KP. She is fantastic. We'll tell stories about Iraq and being on the best search and rescue team that ever existed. Go Yankees. Shout out to her and all the rest. KP, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Just super excited to be here and talk with you guys. Like, I think for the support side of AFE, especially when it comes to aspect war, we don't get a lot of recognition, but we definitely love talking with you guys and being a part of something to get some information out there.
And I don't know why you don't get more love, considering you've saved my life 6 individual times during my career, because that's how many cutaways I had. So we'll talk about it. So KP, you've been in almost, 27 years now? Did I have that right?
27 in May.
27 in May. So what got you into the Air Force way back before 2001?
Well, I come actually from a long line of military. Both my parents were in, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. So really, I went to college off the bat, and then college just wasn't really my forte. I played basketball, but I needed something different. So I came home one day, and my older brother was already in the Air Force. And him and my father are sitting around the kitchen table. I come home from work one day and my dad's like, "You're going into the Air Force." And I was like, threaten me with a good time. I was like, okay. He's like, "You're going to go visit your brother." He was stationed out in Illinois at Scott Air Force Base at the time. Went out there for a week, talked to array of different AFSCs, and came home, went to the recruiter. And I just looked at him. I said, "Where do I sign?" And he was like, "I haven't even given you the spill yet." I was like, "I don't need it." I was like, "I'm just ready to rock and roll." Little did I know, job wise though, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So of course, taking the ASVAB. My 3 jobs were SWAT, survival equipment, and AFE. So,
Like SWAT,
I really,
like the SWAT team?
shit, water, and trash. Uh,
Oh, that's a fantastic ASVAB. Listen, guys, there's tons of resources out there so that you don't get SWAT. You can use the free ASVAB study stuff. So go ahead. That's the funniest thing I've probably ever heard in my life.
So I read the descriptions, and AFE was the one that I liked that talked about being able to go do survival training, being outdoors, working on airframes, just the general description that you get. I'm not a kind of behind the desk kind of gal. I guess now I am as you move up, but I took that leap of faith, and 9 months later, I was in basic training and then off to tech school, which was only 5 weeks and 4 days. And then at my first base. So pretty much from going to basic tech school, I was at my first base Fairchild in 3 months.
Dang. Yeah. What was I'm curious, what was the general Air Force vibe, going through training and like, getting your job and how people describe your job and how it affects the mission pre 9/11? What did the Air Force feel like?
The Air Force felt like a very large, like, business corporation, in my mind. Cause I remember getting to my first base, and both my parents were Army. My dad was a warrant officer. My mom was an officer. Just the kind of like nut to butt, like how the Army deals with things, and that kind of, was in my household as well. I was just ready for people to start yelling at me and formation and running and things like that. But the Air Force pretty much ran like a business. And I remember calling my father. I go, "I don't think this is the military that I knew growing up. Granted, I was not in, but as a military kid, that I'm just like, holy cow." Very honestly laid back, relaxed. It didn't feel like what you see in the movies or what I had kind of grown up with and seen, traveling around the world, with my folks and whatnot. So I felt very relaxed and nothing crazy. And then 9/11 hit, and that kind of changed, I think, for a lot of folks in their perspective and really actioning what we were as a force and what we brought to the fight, more so than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to me, like the whole pre 9/11 thing, because I have no vision on what the Air Force looked like before that. Minus my father in like the 70s, right? But like he basically was like, yeah, you just kind of hang out and do your job and all of this stuff. But like, did you find it was it enjoyable? And then, or were you like waiting for 9/11, which sounds really bad?
Yeah,
but
that's,
you know what I mean.
I think it's enough time. I think we're allowed to have like sort of jokes about that time frame now.
Yeah.
I think
She was like, if only something would happen. And yeah.
So, I mean, yes, I'm always wanting something to happen. I think I was just honestly coming in and going, "Hey, I need a steady job. Let me learn a craft." And then, I wasn't planning on staying in. I was going to do my 4 years, get some stuff under my belt, but definitely was super excited to can I deploy? Like, what are the things that I can do besides just being at the base and for the monotony of your job over and over and over again, because I worked on KC-135s, loved it. But after a while, when you pack the same kit, you pack the same, survival vest, doing the same thing over and over, I wanted to actually see the employment of the equipment in action, and then seeing our air crew in action. That kind of gave me more of a sense of like, okay, this is what I'm talking about. Even though we worked quite in the conflict yet, but we were out in Saudi Arabia there for a while. So, because my first deployment was 6 months in to my career. So, went over to Saudi Arabia for about 3 months, did some stuff, and then came back. And then that was kind of the rotation. And then, but seeing the implementation and all the training and the whys behind what we did as AFE, that's what it was all about, and just trying to get out the door every chance that I could.
I'm starting to see why you ended up in the places you ended up in the Air Force. Right. Like, you just wanted more, and it's not. We tell people I didn't end up here because I'm like better than anybody else. It's just because you didn't quite fit. And I think for you, the day-to-day monotony, some people really like that. They just want to do their job and go home. Have their barbecues and softball games on Fridays, and that's fine. But you definitely were like seeking out like the maximum potential of your experience of your career. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Some crazy things that I want to pull on here, just because we kind of sped by them. But for folks that are thinking about AFE, we've had a couple of AFE dudes on, and it's been fantastic. Again, AFE is one of those support jobs that I'm like, if you don't know what you want to do and you want to have the chance to do the most that you possibly can, AFE is that job. It's crazy to think that AFE Tech School is 5 weeks long. Every single airframe, from jumping to packing equipment. I knew AFE guys. I would just look at them and be like, I don't know how, but I have to throw this out of an airplane. And 2 hours later, it would be packed up, inspected, and ready to go. Like the amount of things that y'all can do is crazy. And to hear that it's a 5-week tech school, especially when you went through, is absolutely insane.
So what you have to realize, though, so our career field merged about 15 years ago. So when I came in, we were life support. So you had life support and survival equipment.
Right.
So they ended up combining them. So for life support, we were only 5 weeks and 4 days. Now that has definitely changed with the merger. And then we've also shredded out. So we have an A and a B shred. So you got ejection and non-ejection. So for the parachuting, the personal parachuting side, that falls under the non-ejection B shred. So those are a month to 6 weeks tech schools now. But yeah, so 1999 is when I came in. So we were two separate, but now what everybody knows now as aircrew flight equipment AFE. So
just listening to Juveniles, 400 Degrees, Slim Shady LP had just dropped, a young KP just out in the world. The other crazy thing is that, we talk to folks now that we're talking about, hey, you're going to go to the recruiter, you're going to talk to him, it's going to be a year, you're going to be in development in 2 years worth of a pipeline, and you're going to do all this other stuff and then hope to get that deployment. You were out the door 6 months after you got in. You were probably only 2 or 3 months beforehand talking to the recruiter. So less than a year, you already had your first deployment under your belt. That's just wild. Right. That's crazy. So as you get back from Saudi Arabia, you start to see, no kidding, how you connect to the mission. And as senior NCOs, you're supposed to be able to explain to every career field, like, this is how you actually impact the mission, from finance to AFE to combat control. It doesn't matter. You're supposed to be able to say, hey, here's how you touch the mission. You got your first little taste of that in Saudi Arabia. That had to just tweak something in your mind and be like, hey, hold on, there's more to this and I want to go do more. So as you started looking at how to grow inside the AFE career field, what opportunities were you presented to where you could start getting closer and closer and closer to that mission?
So really, I chalk it up to, I had really good senior NCOs that saw, I feel, my potential and kind of what I was hungry for. My first survival school was 3 months in. I went to Arctic Survival, the gentleman's course back in the day, right?
Beautiful. Did you get
in December? Negative
Yeah.
50. Loved every minute of it. And seeing that side of the house sear, and really being an outdoors gal myself. So going to do that deployment, and then it kind of just kept going. My leadership was like, hey, do you want to go to combat survival? Do you want to go to water survival? Hey, do you want to take over our training program and start teaching our air crew? And I was like, absolutely. The beauty of being at Fairchild was I went over to SEER School and I said, hey, I got to make our training program better for our air crew. How do I do that? And can you please assist me? Within a year, I was teaching over there in their facilities, utilizing everything. And this is where I got my first glimpse. And I don't know if you guys remember, but in the PLF room on that wall, it has the MFF wings and the Airborne wings. And I remember, I was a senior airman at the time, and I remember the the SEER guy that I was working with, he's like, you'll never achieve that because you're life support, because that's what we were out of time.
Right.
And I was like,
Oh,
hey,
boy.
how do I do that? How do I get into this? Just always acquiring how to move forward or do other things. What are my opportunities, or how can I make them our opportunities? So after that was said, I was like, okay, how do I get that? And where do I have to go to get it? So I started inquiring about all those things. Hit a lot of roadblocks, to be honest. Love my leadership, but at the time, they only know what they know, right? So they're like, I don't know how you get into that. But then all of a sudden, talking with some folks, they're like, hey, there's this whole other world of, really wasn't AFB, but for the survival equipment side. So they're like, you could cross-train, become survival equipment, and then here are the doors that open to help you, because we were two different career fields. Well, luck has it, I just had to wait about 5 years for that to happen. So I got a phone call one day, and I got wrapped up under the umbrella of a data mass unit, and who we worked with. The aperture had grown, and we combined our career field with survival equipment and life support, which now opened up that opportunity to achieve those freefall and airborne wings. I still had a little bit to go because I was working the airframe side, but it was the persistence of, I feel myself and my leadership seeing something and then asking the questions, and then just keep driving, even though some people didn't know, but just driving towards what I wanted to do, because I seeked more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to see more. I didn't want to be stagnant in one location or doing one thing.
That power of saying yes to things, going back to the beginning of this, right? Like, it's your drive and your work ethic, but like we talk about this all the time. It's the willingness, and sorry, it's not really my turn, but like, just they're like, hey, do you want to do this? And you're like, yes. Do you want to do this? Yes. And then like all great stories start, you're like, how do I do that? And someone goes, you can't do that. And you're like, yo, dog, that's going to happen. And then yeah. And it's funny because we're always like, oh, people are not just going to like call you up to like get the coolest job. And that's true. Out of nowhere, they're not going to. But if your name starts running in certain circles, that's when you kind of get that call to go to some of those different types of units like you did.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened for me. There was a chief, because I was in AMC. I went to a conference one time, and he's like, how come you don't have any medals? And I said, what? I was like, I mean, young in your career, you don't really, know the significance and or what you can achieve. And I was like, I don't know. He's like, have you been on deployments? I'm like, yes. But he threw my name out there when the data mass unit came calling and said, hey, do you know any pipe hitters that you got? Somebody that would be a good fit, that can fit this realm. And these are the type of people we're looking for. And he's like, I do. So it's definitely putting yourself out there. I'm not saying you have to say yes to everything, but like, if you want to move on and move out of the monotony, like, you have to be willing to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's a ching to my chief of our career field. That's our saying now. He says it often, but if you want to change and you want to do something, you've got to go after it, because you're absolutely correct. Not everybody's going to come knocking, and you got to put yourself out there.
And it's a little bit of two things. It's a choose your own adventure, but just like you said before, sometimes even the folks in your own career field just might not be aware of how to get you there. Like, it's no fault to them. They just may have never been exposed to that thing. So when you first go and ask them, we have people that hit us up all the time that are like, oh, I went to my chain of command and I asked them to do this thing, and they just said no. We're like, well, right, but that was just the first no.
Right.
Like, that's not the end of it. Now, it's not, you're not going around them or doing things, but they just might not know. Like, if this is a thing that you want to go do, you might have to, I don't know, actually try and continue to put yourself in the right positions to get there. So we get up to the unit that shall not be named, and you just go off to the races. You finally get your shot at Airborne school, You go as a regular Air Force dudette. You're just down there as an AFE chick in the Army. It feel a little bit like home. You grew up in the Army, so at least finally, my joke about the Air Force, and you were talking about how laid back it was. That's why people come to the Air Force. It's almost like being in the military, right?
Right.
But now you're down at Fort Benning, Georgia. You're getting ready, and you're about ready as an AFE chick to go through your very first, like, for real training with the Army at Airborne school. Like, how did you feel going into that course? Like, Airborne school is Airborne school. It's 5 days of training packed into 3 weeks worth of time. Everybody knows this. So
Navy's got it right.
Navy's got exactly. Yeah, the Navy does. Yeah, static line and free fall in a slick 2 weeks, and you're cool. Yep. So how was that? How was that very first time? Because, like, getting to that unit, you had no idea what to expect. You have to go through a selection process to get there. So there's a whole lot tied to that as well. Like, am I supposed to be here? And the first thing they do is like, well, here you go. Everything that we promised you, we're going to front load it and have fun. How was that journey that you started on?
So my supervisor at the time, when he was sending me to Airborne, he goes, "Failure is not an option." I said, "Perfect." I go, because I don't plan on failing. Honestly, I would be wrong to say I was nervous. Absolutely. It's the unknown that you don't know. You hear stories. I talk to the guys. They're like, "Hey, make sure you don't fall out of a run. Make sure that you're punctual, you're on time. Just all the ins and outs. Don't try to drink too much, smoke cigarettes, things of that nature. Just the insider stuff of people that had already been through. So I was nervous. But I think that's the Army mentality is kind of what is ingrained in my brain. So it wasn't shocking to know that I was going to be yelled at for no reason. You just do as you're told, turn off your brain, get through the 3 weeks, and then, grab your wings. So I think really it was just being nervous going down. And then I didn't want to disappoint my teammates, my leadership, because I wanted to continue that progression. So it was a grueling 3 weeks, don't get me wrong. But time of my life, though. I was finally getting to jump out of an airplane, which I've wanted to do for a very long time. I'm achieving something that somebody told me I could not have. And that just made me want it more, right? It's like, it was exhilarating. Plus, I grew up in Fayetteville, Georgia, so my hometown's only about an hour and a half up the road. So actually what was really cool is my mother got to come down and actually pen my Airborne wings on me. So that was super awesome. But yeah.
That's legit. There's a very distinct time in any static line jump, and that time is just after your chute opens and before the 8 seconds where you hit the ground, where you're actually just floating and you're in your chute and things have gone well and you have a chute that works. That's the best 5 seconds of any static line jump. The first time that you do that, you're like, holy crap, fantastic, I did it. Having your mom come down and pin on your wings is just something, again, it's one of those benefits we would never tell anybody. We would never say, like, hey, there's really cool opportunities inside the Air Force. But to have your mom pin your wings on, that had to be a huge deal, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, it was. Because I had just lost my father about a year prior to that. So it was a very surreal moment for our family. But it was awesome that we actually graduated on the drop zone. So she was out at the drop zone when I came out of the plane and everything. And then we did the graduation right there. And she came over and pinned my wings on me.
Well, was she like, "I thought you joined the Air Force. What are you doing here?"
Well, I got 2 brothers. I'm in the middle. So I'm kind of the hell on wheels kid, right? I'm the one that had the stitches and, yeah. So it I guess really expected for my mom and what I was doing and where I was going. She wasn't a time that she was like, "Well, that's not my kid." She's like, "Yep, that's my kid."
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Death defying antics all the time.
Yes.
So we'll talk about the further progression onto free fall and then on to jumpmaster. You have one of the great stories about, I think were you the first female jumpmaster in the Air Force?
So, okay. So we have looked this up over and over again. Not in the Air Force, but if you look at my career field for One Papas, I can't find anything that says that I'm not. But
We're
you also
calling
know people, I would say I'd bet my paycheck that I am the first one papa female freefall jumpmaster.
Okay.
And
I tell people that all the time.
yeah,
For 20 years now, KP, I have told people for sure I know
yeah,
the one. We'll talk about that in a second.
yeah,
But we'll talk about the doors that open, going to the data mass unit, and then you start really going off and start to see exactly what AFE can do for the larger aspect war architecture. That had to be just mind blowing for you. You had to look around in certain rooms and be like, what am I doing here?
right. So I think at the time, because things were still growing for our career field with the merger, and then especially being embedded in the data mass and the aspect war world, and kind of seeing what Apertures as a support entity, not just AFE, but collectively for an A4, A6, how we were being looked at differently, and how we could be part of the team and integrating for the mission going down range. So I think the doors open, and there's a lot of folks out there that we laid the foundation to help grow it to where it's at today. And to see it full force is absolutely amazing. Just the things that everybody swims wise that they're doing and conquering with the operator is mind blowing. But it's awesome to go, man, I remember when we didn't even have that capability, and then turning it into a capability to assist the greater need for that mission for you guys going out the door.
Yeah. And SWMS, everybody, Special Warfare Mission Support. That's the entire umbrella that everybody works under. Again, the operators are not standalone individuals. It takes 10 support people behind every operator to get them out the door. And I saw this time and time.
There's
I know.
dudes that did one enlistment that said that they did everything themselves.
They didn't.
I don't know if you...
No, I'm going to tell you that they didn't.
I'm sure KP has met these people.
The very first time that we had a blowout at the 321st, and this is just before KP and I met, we were on a training thing. We had to come home, and it was a flight out to get there was a sick sailor on a Filipino flagged vessel, right? A Philippine flagged vessel. They were in the North Sea. This guy had appendicitis. He was like 400 miles out, north of Ireland, just in the middle of the North Sea, unable to get to him. So we had to gin up from the 321st, and then I was on the helicopter. I was the medic that hoisted down to the ship to get him. That was the first time, because we got back to the unit. We were training down south. We had to stop training. It was a ropes course. We had to drive back home. And the team leader looks at me and goes, "Hey, listen," it was funny too, the way that it worked out is, team leader J-Mac looks at me and goes, "Hey, bro, we're going to throw you on the helicopters. The helicopters aren't going to do anything. We've got this big Rams mission that we're going to plan. We're going to jump in. They're going to cover us to a boat. Then we're going to do all this other stuff, and we're cool." Well, the rescue master sergeant from up the road at Lake and Heath looked at me and he goes, "Hey, bro, weather sucks. They're not going to be able to jump. We're going to go in." And it was hilarious, because that's what ended up happening. The guys that were supposed to jump in and get the hero mission had to watch the helicopters go in and do it. It was pretty funny. But I'll tell you what, every single person from combat mission support, every single person, we called them Brown Team at the time. They had a hilarious patch. It was like a little monkey in a UPS, and it said, "What can Brown do for you?"
Oh, I love it.
It was like Friday night at 6:00 at night by the time that we got back, because we were going to take off pretty much immediately and fly out the next morning as soon as it got light out. Every single person was there, literally lined up next to the people that were leaving, like next to my cage. Somebody was like, "Here's your flight authorizations. Here's your folder. Here's your survival equipment. Here's your narcs. Here's your meds." And I mean, literally everybody stopped what they were doing. We had kids running around the unit. They bought pizza. It was like a unit event. And that team was the only reason why we got out the door and why that mission was successful. I think that is something that people miss about how important special warfare mission support is. And you got to be at the very tippiest tip of the spear and do that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just, it definitely has evolved. And I actually, a lot of people ask me, they're like, "Do you know where this construct kind of came from?" And it was when I was sitting at the unit.
KP's like,
yeah, KP's like, "Yeah, I'm aware."
So,
right here.
I was actually the first, because at the beginning it was combat mission support. I was the first superintendent to build that with my teammates, to go, what does right look like, and how do we do this, and can it work, and does it work? And at the time, General Slight actually came to the unit, and he saw what they had built, because that unit became, a group. And he's like, I want all my special warfare to mimic this. So it took a couple of years after that. But what you see now is that implementation from that unit that crossed over to the other side. And, guys have been knocking it out of the park. And generally, that superintendent that sits as the SWMS is typically a one papa. And those guys, every single one of them have been crushing it day in and day out. They're getting that exposure that they need for that leadership to move on to the next level, the next echelon, right? Because nobody ever wants to go to a staff. I didn't, was terrified of it. But, that whole construct developed there, and then to see where it's at today, and people are continually evolving it and improving it. And it has done great things, I think, across the board for aspect war.
KP, I got to ask a question, because you know our community, and sometimes we want to do things when nobody's asking for it and for no reason. I got to ask, like, what was the impetus? What was the forcing function for you to push this initiative, and squeeze the talent out of your team to make things better?
So I got to be honest, when they first came online, it was between me and another master, and I was like, I don't want to do that, because I wanted to stay in AFE and jump out of airplanes. I was actually trying to be a tandem master. But then they were like, KP, you got to go over there. And I was like, all right, I got this. We didn't have a roadmap. We had to build it. And that took a lot of time, with the team that I had sitting out at that location, and also working with the ops team and going, okay, what is it that we need? We basically had to start mapping out what's the most important, what can we build first? If we don't do one thing, is it going to break the system? Nope. Okay, we can push that kind of down the road. Honestly, it was a lot of trial and error. We did not get it right. Like that first year of doing it, a lot of late nights, a lot of trying to figure out, okay, not trying to stretch our guys too thin, but then also educating the operator force of you just can't shove us in a hole, or like, we got to sleep. We gotta be able to pee. We've got to be able to eat at some point in time. I mean, we are your machine. Don't get me wrong. We want to get the job done. You have a lot of motivated people, but it's keeping them motivated. But then also it's the educational piece of having everybody understand the dynamics and what it's going to take to get to said point that we need to get to. And then how do we do that the best way possible without breaking our folks? And that was the hardest challenge.
If I don't see how it happens, it's magic. It just happens.
Right. Yeah. Behind the scenes. I love being able to connect. History doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme, and it sure does inform us on where we go. And what you're talking about here is multi-capable airmen getting together with an entire suite of AFSCs, something like 25 separate AFSCs work in AFSPEC war in order to make the mission happen. You guys were on the ground level of that. And when KP says that there was a lot of late nights of them just trying to figure it out, that means they were sitting in the bar arguing, and somebody had a whiteboard or a napkin, and you're like, well, wait a second. If we do this, can we do this? And then there's fights that happen, but that's how we make the sausage, folks. That's how it works.
That's correct.
But when you have those professionals and all of those subject matter experts in the room, that's where the magic happens. And then somebody brands it and they call it multi-capable airmen, and they're like, oh, I came up with this brand new scheme. And you're like, wait a second.
You're right, sir. Great job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Good job.
Right.
You did it. So the pace of mission up there cannot be understated. You guys, everybody in GWAT was just jobbing out, but especially at that unit, you guys were just gone. So tell us about the deployments. Obviously you can't tell us about the deployments, but you could tell us, I don't know, maybe about your favorite deployment with somebody that's on the podcast here today that isn't named Trent, and basically all the stuff, all the opportunities that you were able to do.
Oh boy. So that is actually one of my favorites. Because
I talk about it all the time. It's one of my favorites.
I had just graduated, actually, freefall school. I graduated, and 3 days later, I was on an airplane coming out there. Didn't know who I was going to get. It was my first aspect war deployment as the lead. Sitting with the Mr. Commander as being the stock chief. A I'll never forget losing the key to change the radios. Well, I didn't delete it, but we know who did.
Blame Vic. Blame Vic.
But love that guy. But running around, I think I grew up a lot that deployment, and I think it goes back to kind of what I've already alluded to. You don't know what you don't know, and then being thrusted into the environment, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, finding a way to yes, figuring it out, asking questions. I remember sitting there with TX. He is actually up at the Pentagon with me now, believe it or not. But going through some of the trials and tribulations with him when he came in, he didn't realize we had the rescue unit that had a bad parachute. So I found somebody on the other side because it's a 2-person concept. I had to pack a reserve, and I'm in the talk packing this early one morning, and he comes in and he's like, I didn't realize that's how long it took to pack a reserve and everything that you guys have to do. But some of the fun parts were watching you guys run out the door, because I got that butterflies in my stomach that something exciting's happening, and to be a part of something like that, hearing the rotors go, just being in that environment and seeing things happen. That's where I actually ran the Army 10 miler.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were going to run with me, but other things happened.
Yeah.
They had to go to work instead of running.
Yeah.
We just all hated running.
Now, one of the funniest parts was our Ranger partners that were in there with us.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
They were quite interesting. But I had a lot of fun with them. I remember going through their little barracks there that we had, and first time and last time I ever got to yell at Rangers to clean up their stuff, because they weren't very clean in a sense. And the one guy that left his rifle on the bird and had to carry it around.
Mm-hmm. There were a bunch of my favorite story from there is the same guy. So these Rangers were the most Rangers of Rangers. Okay.
Yeah.
Like no shot to them. However, the Army was busy. So I don't know if we got the A team for who we got for the Rangers that time. Right. They were good dudes. They tried hard. Yes. The same guy that left his rifle, my favorite. We had the same battle rhythm every single night. The AMB would happen. I would take the Rangers and we would go for 2 hours of flat range and 2 hours of CQC. That's what we did every single night. And then everybody else would come over and join us. And then we had our team, it was midnight chow. We were day walkers, or we were not day walkers. We lived and worked at night exclusively. But, about midnight, you'd have your chow and then we get into our training cycle. The same dude, we set up kind of like a tricky scenario for him. We walked in and it was all civilian, no shoot targets. So it was not a live fire shoot house. It was all no shoot targets. There was one live person in the room that you were supposed to do. And the trick was you walk in and you don't shoot anybody. And then you get the hostage and you walk out. I happened to be the hostage. I walk out of this training event and I look and it was Vic and TX are standing there and their eyes are like this wide because all 4 of them, all you heard was reports from the sims going off. And I walk out and I had my arms up and on my sweet tattoo here, there was like 4 separate marks of where I caught sim rounds underneath my arm, which hurt pretty bad. And
so that means you were, never mind.
Well, yeah, Trent, that was a learning event that we had to have. And I looked at him and I said to his face, I said, buddy, we said that you couldn't shoot any civilians. I said, no shooting, no shoot targets. And he was like, oh, I thought that meant we could shoot everything. Oh, and I was like, me. You looked me in the face and then went clack, 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 and shot me 4 times. If
he knows you,
yeah. But so that was good. There was a lot of good stories from them, but they learned and they ended up being super good as well. They ended up being, at least for what we needed them to be, but there were the stories about those Rangers I tell, nobody believes me. So I'm glad that finally somebody brought it up.
Oh, yes. Well, and then honestly, the best part of deployment, because I'm a football girl and I think you and I definitely I'm an Irish fan. You're welcome. Yep. There you go.
So you're the one.
Yes. Oh, I remember many conversations with you.
Yeah.
but like just the camaraderie, I think, the conversations we had, going out, the midnight chows, the just, living life and in our team. And I was listening the other day. I still have a playlist from the deployment. So if my mind serves me correctly, our go mish song for you guys before you stepped was "Hurt Myself Today."
Johnny
It
Cash
was
is
Johnny
hurt.
Cash. Cash's
100%.
version of I can't even think of the name. Who
Is hurt. The Nine Inch
Yeah.
Nails song.
Nine Inch
Yep.
Nails. Yeah.
Yep, Nine Inch Nails. There you go. And I think I played that song because I remember coming home came home in November, and I went home to spend Christmas and whatnot, and I was like, "Wait, got to put on the mission song for
Put
my
on the
guys."
pre-mission song.
Yes,
We got to
pre-mission
we would
song.
do every single time. And I'm telling you, for pre-mission songs, everybody has to have one. You got to get one that gets you that in mindset. I'm telling you, that very calm Johnny Cash, just like it is perfect. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it now because I've listened to that song. It's on my
Mhm.
playlist. Well, just putting the kid on, getting ready to go to work. You don't know what's
Yep.
going to happen, man. That was perfect. What a
Yes.
callback.
Yes.
So God bless the Yankees, the only CSAR deployment that turned into a selection course because you, Vic, and I were the only three that came back from that deployment that actually left
Right.
on the deployment. The team
Mhm.
cycled so many people for that. I think we had like 4 mission commanders at
yeah.
one point.
We
So
did.
it was crazy. It was good. You got back to the data mass unit and then you're just off to the races. We got a little bit of rank under your belt now. Now you're vetted, you're validated, you're hitting that deployment cycle that is just, that was your first one as lead. It certainly wasn't your last one.
No.
So how did things change as we went through GWAT?
So for me, just because I was at the unit for almost 10 years. So a couple more deployments doing the same thing. But then when I became that CMS or swim superintendent, that opened the aperture to really start getting my feet wet in kind of a logistics realm. So J4, I started doing some deployments with that. So actually sitting in a JOC at an 05 or 06 headquarters and being the lead for an AOR to either, move equipment, whatever the guys needed in their location that I was responsible for, disassembling, getting new missions, airframes, trying to figure out with Transcom and all those things of how do I get my guys what they need in the time and manner they need to continue to be efficient and effective, which was challenging. I remember talking to a lot of different liaisons in different countries because trying to, if you're going to fly munitions, you got to have clearance, believe it or not, even though if it's in an aircraft. So opening up my aperture to learn that aspect, and then also working with both the different branches, between the Navy and the Army and how those guys work. And if you're working under them, the different processes and procedures, which are different than the Air Force, especially because you got to know who the boss eye is. You got to know who oversees, who's flying the flag, where you're getting your hominis dominus blessed off. Yes, you can do this. You can't do that.
Who's going to yell at you when you inevitably screw it up and you're just like, sorry, I'm in the Air Force.
Exactly. So doing that definitely started really broadening my perspective and understanding. And I think helping me become a better leader so that when I have other folks that I'm working with or as they're coming up, and that goes back to the same thing of opportunities, right? I was nervous for that because it is an 03 position and I was sitting in it as an E7. So I had some trials and tribulations. I did get yelled at, which is not uncommon, but you take that and then you're either going to do something with it or you're not. But it was definitely a learning curve, but that was probably my second best deployment. I think I grew as a senior NCO. I also grew in knowledge to understand not just the Air Force piece, even though being in that joint environment for 9 years already, but it kept the train moving and there are opportunities to seek out of that as well. Believe it or not, we were trying to move a piece of equipment, very small. It would have fit in a box like this, Unfortunately, we missed the time to get it to the boat. And they're like, well, how do we get it there? Because the aircraft or the airframe on the boat can't operate if it doesn't have this. And I said, well, it's a good thing I'm jump qualified. So actually, TX was my mission commander at the time, and I said, I'll jump it in.
Get out of here.
I got chutes over. The captain from the boat called me personally, and he was like, can we make this happen? I said, sir, I can make anything happen. I go, just give us a day. We're going to talk through this. I already got parachutes coming over. I had already called back and like, send me a parachute. I had already talked to the Army rigging team, who I work very closely with at the unit. And I'm like, this is what I need to be able to do. Can we do this? And can you come check me out? Give me my JMPI, all that stuff. I'm going to jump apart into the water, and the boat's going to come get me, the rib boat, and boom, going to get on the big boat. And then I'm going to hang out on the big boat for 3 weeks until it pulls into port again to get more supplies. We worked a whole con up for it. And then unfortunately they were like, well, we can do without the plane for right now. And I was like,
oh, come on.
Give me my jump.
The captain called, and I was just like, I said, sir, just give us a day. I go, I will find a way to get you your part if it comes down to it. And I go, if I've got to jump it in, I'm your girl. And he was all smiles, even though it was a phone call, but you could just tell he was super excited that someone was like, yep, I'll bring you your part.
Because he thought you were insane, KP. He was like, he was like, wait, I'm talking to this. He probably has a phone. He's like, some chick says she's going to jump it in. And then he like gets back on the phone.
But yeah, so, and then that's where I met my super SEAL. God bless him. He couldn't drive a stick, which was hilarious. And I was like, well, what happens if you're out and about and you gotta get in a vehicle? I go, places we go, they're all stick, because he was supposed to go pick up his boss from the airport, and he comes in one day and he's like, I can't do it. And I was like, you watch all this, I'll go get the boss. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
Just the Air Force saving the Navy again. At least they didn't leave you.
Exactly. No, but that was a great deployment. And granted, Stuttgart's not a deployment, but that's where I was at. So, but no, it definitely helped shape me, and I think the leader I am today. And that kind of set me on my trajectory, I think, where having that knowledge under my belt, and then, being in an AFSOC for 20 out of my 27 years, really drove to that next step of going to the next echelon, right? Maybe looking at a MAGCOM staff, whether it was AFSOC or not, but I think that kind of started painting my resume, if you will, to start looking and seeking after different things besides being at a unit or a group level to help impact the enterprise, and then move it forward with the experiences and knowledge base, and then letting folks know, hey, this is what's out there. Here's how you get there, and this is what you need to do.
Well, it sounds like something happened at some point in your career, and I'm wondering if you could nail this down for me. Like, when was it obvious that you were no longer viewed as just the AFE person, and you were just viewed as a high-level problem solver with talents that they could utilize to get anything done?
I think that was my second year into being the CMS superintendent, is where that really started. People started looking at me in a different light, just with the things that I was going out and doing, things we were able to achieve with the team. And just, that's when they were like, okay, we know you're a good rigger, but wow, you've completely developed into this strategic mind, operational at the time mind leader to drive the force forward. So I think it was really my second year into being a CMS superintendent that I started being looked at a lot differently from my leadership level, and opportunities and things that were being considered or passed my way.
Like, we have this widget, but like I noticed that this widget can do all kinds of things. It's not just what the and I think it's important for people to understand when you talk about AFSOC or the higher level unit and all that other stuff. Like talent, like the people are scarce. It's not huge groups of people. So if you see talent like that, Like we're gonna manage it and squeeze everything out of it if we're doing everything right. It and I don't want to keep beating the dog about how the support folks make everything happen, but like they make everything happen. And when we find those people, and before all the systems were set up to try to keep these people in the community that we find, there's nothing more frustrating than finding that person that is your teammate, regardless if they have a bray or not. And then it's like, oh no, I have to go back to the regular Air Force now, and I can't stay in this community. And it's super frustrating because like I get it, for your career you have to do that, but it's like, no, you're one of us. Like we can't just replace you. Like the next person, it's gonna take 4 years to find out if you're this type of person. You know what I mean?
Right. So, and I think we've also honestly come leaps and bounds for managing that talent across the board, support wise. There's a lot of things in conversations I've been a part of in the last couple of years is how do we keep the talent in the program, but still making sure that the opportunities and promotions and things of that nature, because I'm a little bit of an anomaly being able to stay underneath that umbrella for so long. It took a lot of work. Now, don't get me wrong. But it's those people and those caliber of people that chase after that can, because at one time we had the highest promotion inside and under that umbrella of Aspect War, because you have those go-getters. It's not that they don't exist anywhere else. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
There's tons of them out there. But you got to know what you want. You got to go forward. And there's tons of people out there to help you, to drive you towards that, to get you where you want to be. You got to be hungry for it. And if you're not hungry for it, it's just not going to fall in your lap. I don't think any one road's easier than the other. It really, I feel, it's the person that drives themselves to achieve those things with the help of the teammates, right? We all find those people that we have niches with that go, hey, here's what you need to do if you're looking to do this. This is what I did. And it's not meaning that it's a roadmap that if you do all these things, you're going to get it. But it points you in the right direction and gets you where you need to be and put your compass on heading to achieve it.
Yeah. So you've done all these things. You pushed yourself. You become this person, right? That's highly valuable in like a pretty kinetic environment. Even if you're in Stuttgart, like it's a kinetic environment type thing.
Yes.
And you said you ended up coming kind of back to like regular Air Force staff positions. What was that like?
Oh boy. So, I thought I was going to stay at the unit forever. Honestly, I was planning on, that was right around my 20-year mark. And I was like, this is my niche. This is what I love everything about it. And then it was like, well, we can't do another extension. You got to go back out into the Air Force. So fun fact was I got orders. And I got orders to Dyess Air Force Base to work on B-1s. So, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I have been under this umbrella for 14 years, 10 of it, I've been a rigger. What am I going to be able to provide a flying unit again? I hadn't really touched an aircraft in a long time. So I was angry. I went home and, I talked to my wife and I was like, we can press a button and I can go ahead and retire, or we could go to Dyess Air Force Base. Had to pull it up on the map. It's, of course, out in the middle of nowhere. I said, I'll just promote myself out of a job if we decide to go. So we had come to the conclusion that, hey, we're just going to go. I'll promote myself out of a job and we'll move on. I was like, I can do this. I go, if anything, it's an opportunity to learn and still grow. So 2 hours later, I get a text from my chief, and he's like, yeah, your orders will be turned off next week. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I get a text a week later and they're like, look, you're going to Herbert Field and they don't know where you're going to put you. My MFM called me and he's like, you just might come sit up at headquarters with me. The 720th position was opening up because the superintendent was retiring. So what ended up happening is they ended up PCSing me there. So I stayed under the Aspect War umbrella, doing what I love. Got there, hit the ground running. The first thing they dropped in my lap was a QTP, qualification training plan, because that's right when we were transitioning to the BOC.
Yeah, perfect. Good for you.
And they're like, you have the most experience in jumping. They're like, look at this. And oh, by the way, we're going to start executing it up at Paraclete here in like 2 months.
Oh, and by the way,
And I'm
you're going to
like,
run it. So you're also
yeah.
the instructor. You have to make the plan and then make the plan happen.
So the guys put it together. We looked over it. We had 2 from each aspect war unit for the AFSOC side of the house, because ACC had already, we actually mirrored their training plan, which was put together very, very well. So we went up there and ran it. I had 2 jumpmasters from each AFSOC unit. We started executing things. We made some changes. I came back and basically told, at the time, Colonel Allen, who's now
the
Brigadier
Matt
General
Allen.
Allen, who
The
is
Matt
up with me.
Allen.
I just saw him the other day.
Awesome.
But I was like, hey, we're shutting this down until these things get corrected. And then we can implement it. So, no, the whole team and the jump masters I had from each unit were great. I thought we put together a great plan and then started executing it. SOCOM actually liked it enough that they adopted it as well. So there was a lot of goodness that came together with all the SMEs for that program. So really, when I got there, I started getting really heavily into the jumping side just from my experience. And then developing our rigger side even more. We actually ended up getting the entirety of all of AFB, or the rigger side of the house in AFSOC. They are 100% jump coded along with the MATCHCOM staff. So, and that all started from also one of the chiefs that I worked with, but we started moving in a different direction and trying to get stuff based kind of like the Army has it for the riggers, because I think that's important. I think they do have something with that. It's not just knowing I know how to pack a parachute. I understand how it operates, and I know I can talk to my guys when they tell me, hey, I've got an issue. They understand it from tip to tail at the end of the day to move forward. So,
And that was such a long time coming. I mean, we'd been trying to do that for years. So the fact that when I finally saw it happen and I knew that your name was attached to it, it was one of those things. I was like, yeah, of course, KP was one of the people that finally got these people to realize that if you pack the chute, you should probably be qualified in jumping it as well. It's one of those common sense things that just wasn't. We just lost it somewhere, and we figured it out. And that leads you to where you are today. You are the subject matter expert for jumping in the Air Force. You got to ask Kristin if you're going to go jump out of an airplane, everybody.
Well, I've got the rigging aspect. That would be a Mr. Josh Lewis, who's the half triple PM. But
oh boy,
I know JU. As soon as you told me she was talking with JU, I was like, "You tell him I said hi."
Yep. No, we work very, very well together. No, being up here at the Pentagon has been amazing. They actually so they made a rigger position, a lead rigger for the Air Force. It came out of an AFSAS write-up. So having that opportunity to follow one of my counterparts that came up here for a year, of course, made chief, had to move on. But luckily, the Air Force decided to do the 2-year extension during my tenure. So I took the 2-year extension to be able to come up here to help develop that process a lot better and more to where, I mean, because it was non-existent, right? So working with the Army, really working with the Navy, just getting everything tied together for our program to grow and to be better. Not that it's a solid program. There's just things I think that we had missing, and bridging that gap to be able to move it forward has leaps and bounds. So this position's been 2.5 years now. So we're definitely growing in the right manner, and then getting, working with our triple PMs and getting them to understand, hey, a little bit more of the rigor side, but closing those gaps at each level. We just wrote policy to where, kind of like the triple PMs do, they have one at the MATCHCOM, they have, a parachuting POC at the unit level, group, wing. So we just wrote into policy that will be coming out here soon. I did the same thing on the rigor side. That way they intertwine with the triple PM, and we get more of a consensus for the entirety of the parachuting program, not just from the jumping side and rigging side, but actually fusing that together to make things go a lot smoother and a better understanding to get what we need to get after collectively.
Well, at the end of your 27 years, you've seen the career field evolve. You've evolved yourself. We always end with some sort of advice. You have probably one of the most interesting careers in all of aspect war for sure, but probably in the Air Force. If you had advice to somebody looking to get in today, whether it's AFE, aspect war, anything, what advice would you give those people to prepare themselves for the crazy ride that they're about to take?
So I would definitely say, get out of your comfort zone. Be willing to try new things, different things, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there's nothing wrong with asking questions and asking the why behind it. Because all that's going to end up doing for you or that individual is it's going to make you more self-aware, understanding, and then you can make that decision. Hey, is this world for me or is it not? It'll push you, I think, in the right direction. And then when you ask those questions and the person you're asking them to doesn't know them, people know people, right? They're going to get you where you need to be to get those questions answered. And then everybody's got a fire inside of them. Keep that fire lit and keep driving forward with what you want to do. You're the only person that's going to be able to make yourself happy. Nobody else is.
Be like, you annoy me the way that I know that this other person annoys me at this other unit, and you remind me of them. So I'm going to call this other person that they're just go like, why can't you just be happy here? So I'm going to call them and be like, I got another one of you.
Right.
How dare you? How dare you give motivational input that makes Trent feel things? That's not good. We don't like when Trent feels things. KP, thanks for coming on. You're an awesome leader. You're one of the best senior NCOs. I can't wait to see that name come out on that E9 list. I know it's coming. I feel it in my heart.
Well, if it doesn't, then we're done May of next year, but that's okay.
Well, you've given everything that you possibly could, not only for the Air Force, but for this great country. And for that, we appreciate it. So from one savage, one Yankee to another, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Everybody else, we'll see you next time. We're done.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.